It's Spoilerin time. I'm Tom Merritt, and we are here to spoil you, Brian Brushwood.
Oh, good.
We brought you bonbons. We're gonna paint your nails and bubble bath.
Then you're gonna rub me in corpses, right? Because we're gonna start with The Walking Dead. But first, we have to explain our third spoilery. Joining us is the fabulous Veronica Belmont.
Hi-ho, neighborinos.
How's it going, VB?
Good. I'm excited to spoil some stuff.
So Veronica's gonna hang with us through half the episode because she's seen Walking Dead. So we're gonna humor Brian and try not to spoil the episodes he hasn't watched. But we're gonna talk about season 5, episodes 5 and 6. Then we'll get to Black Mirror. Veronica's only seen the first episode of season 1 of Black Mirror. She'll hang with us for that. But then we're gonna spoil episodes 2 and 3 of season 1 of Black Mirror, and then finish up with The Shield season 4, episode 1. So Brian.
Yeah.
You're into the 5th season of The Walking Dead,
Right?
Which involves zombies.
Tom, I don't know what you're talking about because I'm pretty sure this is the first season because I honestly can't remember anything that happened before this season. It's as though they don't exist in my mind, Tom.
So on this first season, the episode is called Self-Help. And this is Abraham and the crew dealing with the fact that Eugene ain't what he thought he was.
Yeah, this is cool because this is...
they thought he was.
What this episode actually covers the time period at which point I fell off reading the comic books, the themes that were happening in there. And there's been mashup and remixes, and they change different scenes. Like earlier in this season, we saw what was a Dale scene played out with Bob. And that's all cool. By the way, if you hear us talking about this, everything... before this, watch the pilot and jump immediately to the first episode of season 5. Nothing matters in the middle of all that. You can start right in there, and it's good storytelling, and you'll never be angry about people standing around talking about a barn. But at any rate, it was cool because when I was reading the comic book, I was just like, there is no way that this guy knows any secrets in Washington, D.C. and is doing any research. It is clear that Abraham is just a guy who needs something to believe in, and this guy will do as good as anyone else. And it was cool. I never got in the comic book to the point of the reveal, but in this, to have that moment of reveal, I was like, I called it. But I liked it. I liked the way the awkward acting of the guy who plays Eugene. I think Abraham is utterly believable, man. I am intimidated and scared of him. I think the realities of at one point, if you read The Grapes of Wrath, if you count all the people, I believe there are literally 16 people in the truck for the journey out west. And at one point, there's talk where clearly the teenagers are having sex in a truck filled with 16 other people as they go. Not a lot of privacy. And you see kind of moments of that where they're all like, they're making love, and it's like, oh, Eugene's watching, and you're like, oh, well, what are you going to do? And I don't know. It felt very real and believable, and I liked this episode a lot. It moved forward. I mean, the reveal of there is no secret knowledge, and I'm just a socially awkward guy, probably on the autistic spectrum, is a non-moment for me, but everything else I loved.
Now, what do you think is Eugene's fate at the end of this episode? He's a bloody mess.
Wait, that's right, because he gets beat up, right? Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll walk it off tomorrow. It's the Walking Dead universe.
There's walking. It's right in the title.
He's too interesting a character for them to let him die like that. I mean, it makes sense that somebody had his hissy fit and punched a dude in the face, and that's fine.
So then on to the next episode, which is something that just fell off my screen.
No, this is Daryl and Carol are
conversations. Consumed. Most of my conversations involve consuming.
They're trying to figure out, what's the story with these hospital folks, and so they're back, rooting around in downtown Dragon Con, which I loved.
I think about it every time. I'm like looking for Dragon Con locations.
It really is amazing because they'll just turn and they're like, oh wait, I don't, yeah, and then
that's Peachtree Center.
And
I think I parked there.
It's cool to see them finally spending money on the big visuals. Again, for those of you guys who haven't watched before, good. First season was utterly extraordinary. They really did a good job of maximizing their budgets, especially on the visuals on the pilot. Second season was crap because they didn't. They saved all their money and they just started banking it. There was interior drama at AMC at the time. Because whatever, we could talk about it later. Just watch your movies.
All the past, Brian.
Yeah, just watch your movie sucks analysis on seasons 1 and 2. It's awesome. At any rate, it's good to see those big, intimidating visuals. Those well executed backdrops. I could sit there and just look at at that destroyed Atlanta, where it's so lived in, and you could tell. That building had a very particular fire that was just in this one part, and I'd love to know the story of that one horrific aspect to it. And anyway, this is, Daryl and Carol running around playing investigator with a couple of... I did like the scene where they were in the precariously balanced van, and all of a sudden they were like, what can we do? What can we do? And it was like, all I remember thinking was, 35-mile-an-hour car crash is roughly equivalent to dropping 2 stories directly vertically down. So it's like, get ready for a 35-mile-an-hour car crash and buckle up. And they did exactly that. And it was cool because it happened. And there's that pregnant moment where like, oh, they made it. They're okay. And then just thump, 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 bodies flopping down. We're like, oh, of course the zombies aren't going to,
yeah. That was gnarly.
It was a well-executed awesome set piece. I really like that.
Absolutely. It's like gravity works.
Yes.
Even in this post-apocalyptic landscape.
And even knowing that Carol ends up in the hospital, and I'm like, I guess they have some plan to have her infiltrate the hospital. Maybe she fakes an injury. And as I'm thinking that, just bam, car just smashes into her, flips her body up, and then they wheel her off. It was great. I'm telling you, man, the pilot exists, and season 5 exists.
Here's the interesting thing too. I feel like this season, if you describe it from the outside, could sound boring at this point, right? Like the first, you're on a roller coaster ride through all the church episodes. But then you get to these 2 episodes, and it's like, okay, now we're gonna follow these guys with the story of what happens on the road. And frankly, not much happens through the second half of the episode. That bus is just stuck there. Then we're going to go into the city, and it's actually a flashback, and it's just them kind of fumbling around in the city trying to figure stuff out. But that's not how it feels watching it. Well, like there is a quantitative difference between the storytelling, not just what is actually happening.
Well, to be honest, if you know the backstory with Daryl and Carol, and I only know part of it because I gave up watching and sat out a couple of seasons, I honestly think you could watch just that episode, which is mostly Daryl and Carol talking about their kind of damaged past and whether or not they can ever forgive each other. And it's like, well, we're just here. You could start there, not knowing any of the backstory. And it is a well-told story, and you understand that these are 2 damaged individuals that have some kind of history, but have a job to do and need to move forward. It's the storytelling is exquisite this year.
I agree. I think someone was complaining recently that the show, like, oh, you still watch that? And I was like, yeah, I still watch it. It's really good. Like, there have been some rough spots throughout the show, but I think it came back super strong this season, and I'm only more excited to catch up with the rest of the season when it comes back.
Yeah, season 4 was when it came back for me. But Brian, it's funny you say that about Carol and Daryl. I think that's emblematic of what happened is you didn't miss anything in their relationship. This season is the first time they've gotten back together and done anything. What you missed was Daryl building a relationship with Beth, which is kind of good to have in a future couple episodes. But even then, not having it isn't going to hurt you. You're still going to appreciate it for exactly the reasons that you said.
Well, they had a relationship. I think Carol and Daryl had a relationship, but to me, it always felt more maternal. And maybe that's because, Carol was really trying to find herself and figure out who she was in this world without this abusive husband and being a mother and like everything she's gone throughout the course of the show. She's like really, she's come into her own in the past season or 2, for better or for worse. I mean, it's been super, super rough for her at the same time, and she's gone through a lot. And we had that kind of episode where we look back at some of the pivotal moments, from the last season or 2, where we really see Carol doing things that old Carol never would have even thought to do. So she's grown a lot as a character and become.
Speaking of which, they did one thing that I thought was a really cool conceit, and this is why I think you could skip all the stuff in the middle. Throughout this episode, you know, you're seeing Carol and Daryl travel around, but you just, with no context and with no explanation of remembering, you can see all these flashbacks to various moments in Carol's growth. You know, when she took those bodies out, when she killed the sick people and then burned their bodies. You know, when she got abandoned and exiled. I mean, it's
well, and what's so clever
beautiful
about that is I believe they're doing that on purpose because they know there's Brian Brushwoods out there.
Yeah.
And they're like picking scenes that for us who followed it all the way through are like, oh, that's an extra bit that we didn't actually ever get to see. That's cool. And for you, it's telling you like, this is really all you need to know about the backstory.
Yeah,
right?
correct. And it's smart. They understand that they have the audience, and now they apparently have the talent, and the actors have clearly found their voices. I mean, there's not a weak actor in the bunch. And I'll even go so far as to say Carl. I mean, you know, they figured out how to keep Carl in the right situations where he can act the most, you know, play to his strengths. Everybody's playing to their strengths in this show now.
Yeah, Carl's come back around for sure. He's definitely improved in a big way as a character.
Yeah, he's
grown up. He's grown up. He's not whiny. I think for me, the worst of Carl actually was that episode of him by himself. That Carl episode where he went off and looked for stuff and ate the pudding on the roof. Do you remember that episode, Tom?
It was just mopey Carl for the
It was
entire
just
episode.
insufferable. It was like the pinnacle of insufferable teenage Carl.
It did make me hungry for pudding though.
He was, I mean, I can respect that. I mean, I think we can all respect that at the end of the day. But he's come into his own. Now he feels like, post that episode, he's like a young man instead of a boy.
By the way, for the record, CompuVision LR says, anyone else hear how much Brian regrets missing episodes, but isn't ready to say it out loud yet?
No.
Come at me, bro. Yeah, I don't have another half hour to get started on how not regretful I am.
Don't bait him, CompuVision LR. I still think it's worth seeing season 4, but I will never tell anyone that they have to go back and watch seasons 2 and 3. I just don't think it's necessary. And even the first half of season 4, only the second half of season 4 to me is worth.
Well, and that's when I gave up. Was at the beginning of season 4.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm out. I'm done. I can't.
What was the moment for you? What was it?
It was just exhaustion. It's characters just acting irrationally, setting up stuff, and then just throwing it out the window. It's clear that these were that they were. We don't have the time. We need to talk about. We got to talk about Black Mirror.
We got pigs to talk about. Let's get to the
Holy
Black Mirror.
Crap.
So we're going to talk about the Black Mirror season 1, episodes 1, 2, and 3. 15 million merits is episode 2. The entire history view is episode 3. But the national anthem. Stand up, ladies and gentlemen, and salute this episode, which I'm just going to set it up and let Veronica give her initial reactions. The beginning of the episode, the Prime Minister receives a demand that the beloved princess, who isn't Kate, but is supposed to be kind of representative of all beloved royalty in the UK, has been kidnapped. And the kidnapper's only demand is that the Prime Minister must go on live television and have sex with a pig.
Non-simulated.
Non-simulated, has to be live, has to be him.
And
No
with
tricks.
specific demands of how the camera is to be handled so that it cannot
Cinema
be
verite.
tricked. Yes.
Yes.
And it must be to completion.
I mean, it was really upsetting. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most upsetting shows I've probably seen in a very, very long time. And it wasn't scary. It was just a total mind F, you know? Like it was, I don't remember if we were allowed to swear on the show or not. I assume not. But it was just the sheer the horror of it. And then when we are told at the end what it was really all about, and you're just like, holy crap, man, that was, you ruined at least one person's life, probably more than one person's life. And it was just a spectacle. I mean, the whole point of it was to be like some kind of sick, twisted statement art piece. And it was, watching it play out was really uncomfortable, but I think that's exactly what it was supposed to be. I think that was the point of the fictional art piece as well. Our fascination with voyeurism, our fascination with watching other people suffer. our enjoyment of that, or apparently our lack of enjoyment with that, because it doesn't seem like anyone actually enjoyed watching it. It was just, our fascination with what's on the screen, no matter how horrifying it might end up being.
I think what made this for me is just how elegantly the story is told in several different ways. For one, they set you up with a laughable premise right from the beginning. They're like, wait, have the prime minister have sex with a pig on TV? Come on. That's a joke, right? But it's not a joke. And they make you believe that it's not a joke. And then they walk you through the, like, well, of course he's not going to do it. What is he going to do? And that's the suspense. And then they lead you so believably into the situation where he has to do it. And it's not, and you can't tell somebody about this episode and get them to understand. You're like, oh, so you really believe he has to do it? Like, for me anyway, yes, 100%. At that point, he had no choice.
Quick poll. How many of us went in totally cold on this, having no idea?
Totally cold.
Okay, I think that's why it affected all of us so deeply, and I'm sad for anyone who even knows, oh, something, that's a show with a pig, and it's like,
oh, we can say that.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
Brian can.
Right, well, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I mean, it's literally the conceit of the show.
Yeah.
I probably should have cursed. I feel bad that anyone even knows that that's associated with this first episode, because to have that come up, like, well, clearly that's not what the show's about, and then to watch this noose come around where to save his career, to save to save a real life, and perversely to save his dignity, he has to debase himself, and the imagery, first of all, the content is so dark, and you feel this sickness in your gut. You feel this the haunted. I mean, you feel haunted after you go through that experience with them, and you're like, I don't know what else you can do. I don't know what else you could do.
And I read someone today wrote a review of it, being like, someone who had watched it for the first time as well, being like, don't binge watch this show. Like, maybe don't binge watch this one, because it is the episodes are so increasingly dark, even, that to binge watch it, you just can't really absorb them piece by piece in the same way.
I disagree. Friggin' next to our
having
vacation.
Just binge watched all 6 episodes on Netflix this weekend.
So your brain is basically going to be like a horror-scape by like the end of the week.
Okay, I don't know that each one is darker than the last. Certainly the second, and not to spoil anything, but the next episode is not of the same nature as the first.
None of them all.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're all talking about the effects of technology on our lives in a Twilight Zone way. That's the premise of the show. But they're very different takes on it. In fact, this first episode, I think, is, in my opinion, the grossest one of the bunch.
Oh, in a huge way.
And it's so elegant the way they did it, because you get to the point where he's, he's on live TV. They had to do it. They maneuvered this to where he had to absolutely do it on live TV, and they asked people, please turn your televisions off. Don't watch, because he's actually going to do it. And nobody does. They leave the televisions on. I'm like, how are they going to handle this? And it's handled so perfectly in showing the reactions of the people. And it's not just, okay, everybody look disgusted. It's like a whole rainbow of reactions, from like avid fascination to like guilty fascination to disgust to turning away, and you're like, I get what's going on because I know what's supposed to go on, but it's just as effective to me, even though I'm not actually seeing it.
Do you know the moment that sticks with me? The moment of pure poetry is the grim determination as he's walking down the hallway, and he's handed a medicine thing full of Viagra. And he's getting PR tips on how long to take and the tools they have at his disposal, and she's sedated and blah, blah, blah. And then the starkness, and it'd be like, don't worry, it'll only be one cameraman in there. And then the door opens, and you see that hollow black room and that sow slurping while porn plays on televisions. Like, that is a stain on my brain that will never be erased. That door opening and then looking at that, because at that moment I was so hypnotized. I mean, I was that person in that situation, and I just felt sick. And then I was really glad it was only a TV show. You know, I mean, it's dark poetry, but
is it out of the realm of possibility? Like, I mean, if you think about it, one of the other points that the review made was like, this is also horrifying because it's so close to our own reality, because it's all stuff that feels like it could happen within the next 5 to 10 years. And so I think that makes it even more disturbing, because you're like, that's a twisted, messed up story. Hopefully there are no copycats, because that could definitely happen. You know,
well, social psychology is the only thing preventing this from happening, right? Technically, all of this could happen. Could happen right now. And that's why I think what's so frightening to us is when there's nothing that isn't human preventing us. Like, well, he could do that, but he wouldn't be able to get away with it because they wouldn't really be able to detect it wasn't the prime minister, right? He wouldn't be able to have the spy technology, et cetera, whatever. That's what makes us feel better usually. The only reason this wouldn't happen or hasn't happened is because we as a species haven't let it happen. Like, there just hasn't been the right combination of personalities. And I think that's what's most frightening about this, is it's putting technology in the position not of being evil itself, but taking away the barriers and leaving us as human beings to be like, now you're on your own.
Yeah.
Like, humanity is now only going to be as good or bad as humanity is.
Yeah. Man, and that dark twist of the fact that she was released before.
Yeah.
It's
dark. Even the follow-up at the end where he's rallied back and he's regained the public trust, but his personal life
dead.
His wife hates him.
Yeah.
Wow. I know, that made me sad. I'm like, oh, this is actually, oh, good. I'm glad he's okay. And then you're like, well, first of all, are you ever really okay after that? And second of all, your wife loathes you.
Body turned. It was just like, just for the record, I mean, just have sex with the pig. It's cool. Whatever.
I said the same thing to Ryan. I started the exact same thing. I was like, I won't judge you.
You'll be a hero, a national hero.
Well, and that's what I mean about, like, social psychology is the thing that prevents this is the only thing that could prevent this from becoming reality, because it hinges on things like public opinion swaying, you know, and stuff like that, and the support or not support of your spouse, right? Man,
crazy.
Well, I can't wait to talk about the other two with Brian.
Right.
But Veronica, before we let you go, is there anything else you want to say about this episode or Black Mirror or anything?
I'm gonna keep watching it, but you guys know me. I'm very like.
To be honest, the next episode I found rather sweet. I really enjoyed the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think
then I'll keep going with it. Maybe I'll go watch one now.
Yeah, actually,
the next one will make you. It almost is a perfect amuse-bouche follow-up, at least, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good.
Because
I'm excited. I'll stay with it.
We're not in a world with pigs. This is great.
Oh my God! All the pigs have been eradicated from this particular world. Thank God.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for hanging with us, Veronica.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye.
Take care.
You can find more Veronica at veronicabelmont.com. We forgot to plug that in the first show.
Oh, well, I guess we'll make sure to throw that in the show notes.
And swordandlaser.com.
Yeah.
Go get some sci-fi and fantasy on, because our next episode of Black Mirror, 15 Million Merits, is a sci-fi episode.
Yeah. I liked it. I mean, it's a simpler story. It's much more reminiscent of The Outer Limits.
Yeah, it's not as psychological. It's psychological at the end. It's not as psychological throughout. It's more of a love story throughout, set in a future dystopia.
Yeah, it was strangely, it was strangely satisfying to watch this reality television engine chew up and spit out an entrant on whatever those those bring out the parade of poor people who have dreams. So we can laugh at them. Having been through that ringer and experienced that firsthand, I was like, yeah, pretty much that's accurate.
Yeah.
This is not satire. This is actual reality. This is not a projection.
What was really interesting, I was watching this one with Eileen. She wasn't around when I watched the first one, but I started watching this one. And she was like, oh, okay, you're watching some sci-fi thing. And she's paying a little bit of attention, but she's on her phone doing some stuff, checking some email, whatever. And then it got to the section of the reality show, and she watches American Idol, The Voice. She actually went to the set of The Voice and watched The Voice live last Monday. So she's like way into that panel talent show format. And when it came up, she was like, you could just see she got riveted. She's like, oh, this is really interesting. This is good. Because they nailed it, right? I mean, it's a caricature for sure, because it's this future where that's the only reality show is sort of the implication. And they are more extreme than the current judges are. But the mean guy was definitely trying to be a Simon Cowell type mean guy. And they went a little farther with the lascivious guy, right? There's always the guy who's a little bit lascivious, but they're just like, oh, he's going to full on offer people, slots in porn films.
Right. Well, and, it's simplified. As you do, as in all great science fiction short stories, you set the boundaries and you work within them. If you want to set up little things like, okay, all that exists is, maybe, obviously there has to be more jobs for humanity to do than to pedal a bike. But in this guy's social strata and class, that's all that exists. He's in this box and he goes home to his cell and he earns his money so that and I love the way that they just called them doppels, and it was up to you to figure out, your doppelganger or your me equivalent.
Yeah, totally.
Or whatever.
It was a Nintendo looking thing.
Everything was simplified, but it reminded me of like a golden age science fiction story, and I liked it a lot. Right up to the twist ending where he becomes part of the machine to be the false rebellion.
Well, and it is therefore to me a tragedy, right? Where he really has pure sentiments, and it was really, really cool that they made a kind of an unsympathetic moment for him, where he uses the knowledge of how to get the apple out that he got from the girl who liked him, that he never gave the time of day to, in order to get the girl he likes. Right? And they're like, so this guy isn't like pure. He's not like the perfect person. He has his faults, but he really has genuine feelings about the system, and he finds this one beautiful thing in this one authentic thing in this otherwise entirely simulated world, and he wants to celebrate it, but then the system crushes him and basically buys him. And it's, to me, the message is everybody has a price, and even if you are trying to fight for some kind of reality and genuineness to fight the alienation of your world, in the end the world will buy you out.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Jackie Hearn points out that this was the longest of the episodes at 61 minutes, and the rest were about 45. I didn't even... This felt like a shorter episode, maybe because it wasn't as painful and twisty as the other two were.
Yeah, there's not the uncomfortable moments as much. There are a few. Yeah. But it's such a clean world. It's really the only uncomfortable moment is when he's holding the shard to his neck, and you're like, oh, geez, he's really gonna do it.
Well, and the fact like that he instantly becomes a caricature of himself, in that every time he goes live on the stream, that's his gimmick, is he's got to make sure to hold his shard up to his neck.
Oh, and the people who are writing this are doing such a good job with the touches, right? They're paying attention, they're layering it close, because a lot of people won't notice that one of the writers was buying a shard. A Bing shard for his doppel. It's like,
oh yeah, no, I love that, where it's like, that's the end thing, we can start marketing your rage. And yeah, absolutely. It was cool. I think this was spoiler alert, I think the amount I liked the episodes goes right in order. I liked the first one the most. I think that was the most poignant and amazing and mind-blowing. The second one I liked second. I thought it was sweet and good, which brings us to
the entire history of you.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say I didn't like this one. I'm gonna say I like this one the least.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I think I might agree with you. I want to not agree with you just because it makes for better TV, but then that would be turning me into Bing, wouldn't it? You're letting the system change my beliefs. But I know exactly what you mean. Is like, I don't want to say I don't like this one. I like it in an entirely different way. It doesn't have as much of a twist and much of a mind play as the first one, and it's an entirely different story than the second one. This is a love drama, a love triangle drama, but with better technology.
Well, and
what I do love about this one that the other two don't have, this has the best depiction of the impact of technology on otherwise familiar social relationships. If we could remember everything at the flick of a button, right? This is Google search on steroids. How would it change our relationships? And I love that it shows that it would change them a little, but probably not as much as you think.
I guess that's the problem is this one had far and away the best world building, right?
Yeah.
The first one was pretty much today. The second one was, a fantasy sci-fi universe. And this one is very realistically 20 years out, right? Reality, 20 years out, this would be totally possible. And this is the way people would act. However, another movie did exactly that. In it, that it projected a realistic depiction of where we'll be in 20 years. It had a likable protagonist and dealt with a complicated nature of love. It was called Her, and it was great. I empathized with the main character, and I agonized with him falling in love with an AI. This was not so much. I found this to be an unlikable, juvenile, pedantic, self-absorbed husband who who lacked effective communication skills, who whines like a child, who cracks a case. Congratulations, Sherlock. Yeah, you're damn right she cheats on you. Look at you. You're an ass. Nobody likes you. This is why you suck at your job. This is why you suck at your career. And good for you for solving the case. You've solved the case. You're a big jerk. Congratulations.
Yeah, but that's not the story.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
What is the story?
The story isn't that at all. The story is, what does this technology, the ability to remember everything, do to what people are normally? There are normally people like him who are douchey, but have real love for a partner, which I totally believe he did. But at the same time, have impulse control and jealousy issues. And then there's always somebody who is likable and lovable, but has a past and doesn't want to share it. Like, this is, to me, a very unremarkable love story.
Okay.
Like, yep, that's the jealous lover. That's the woman hiding something. That's, the former flame who really isn't as big of a threat. Like, this story's been told a million times. But how do you tell it with this twist to it? And I did really enjoy the way they incorporated that into, like, hey, these are the familiar arguments, but now they're different. Now the guy doesn't just drag the third party into the argument like, hey, she says this and I say this, what do you think? And then the uncomfortable, I don't want to be involved. It's, here's exactly what she said.
Yeah.
I'm going to play it for you.
Well, but
tell me what you think.
But
I found that interesting.
I mean, I guess, but it just, we already have that. We already have that in that, okay, if this was written in 1981, it would be the exact same story. The script from beginning to end would be the exact same thing, only there would be a world where there are micro cameras all around and everything you do is recorded, which, by the way, is the actual world we live in 34 years later, right? So, I mean, so what? It's like,
but we don't have that ability to immediately, quickly call up every conversation we've ever had for the past 20 years, right?
Wait, no, but we do insofar as, well, and neither do they, because they delete records and there's gaps in there and there's people.
No, I said the ability, and they have that ability and they use it.
No. I'm saying even they don't have the ability.
Yeah, they have the ability. You're saying that they sometimes delete things, which
that's what I'm saying. And once they delete it, they no longer have that ability.
But very demonstrably in the episode, they're like, "Well,
Tom,
show me 20 years ago."
Tom. This is a world where almost everything is recorded. Almost everything is kept. However, there are gaps. There are gaps.
Everything is recorded. Well, you're right, because the one girl doesn't have the grain. But okay, yeah.
Yes, and people purge stuff, and of course the way it ends is the guy drops out or whatever. We live in a world where almost everything is recorded.
Not nearly the same amount as
You're right.
You can't say we live in that world.
Okay, hold on, buddy.
Go ahead.
Okay, this world, the fantasy world, we'll say 2% gaps between the deletions and memory corruptions and people who aren't participating, right? Call that 2%. Our world, call it 60% gaps, because not all of us, and let's say our world is the three of us and all the podcasting and stuff we do in our conversations, right?
Okay.
1981, 99% gap, right? So here's what I'm saying. It's the same. It's just a trend. It's just there's nothing new here. This is be afraid of spy cameras. Everything's recorded.
I don't think so. I think there's more to it than that personally. I look at it and I get more out of it than that. I look at it and I say, this is taking a very old story. You're right about that. It's the same story. And saying, what if instead of, well, you said this, and the other person like, well, that's not exactly what I said. What if instead of that, you had near universal ability to check?
Okay, here's my
And
point.
that's what they play out in this story. He's like, I want you to show me when you had sex with him, right? Like that's what we're going with. We don't have that ability. We don't have anything even close to that ability. So I don't think it's I don't feel like I live in that world. This is a world where those questions no longer no longer can be hidden. You can review that. And yet people still are able to form bonds and relationships, and they also are able to be jerks about it. And the point to me was that having the cameras and the universal ability to see everything doesn't change people, at least in this story's perspective. It's sort of turning it on its head, like, yeah, but if we had cameras everywhere, then that would change people's behavior. And the point of this story to me is, okay, we put cameras everywhere. Now what? It doesn't change people's behavior.
The only moments that really rung to me as novel or engaging in this universe, because again, I don't think there's a single beat thematically or story-wise that you couldn't tell in a universe where instead of playing it in your eyes, you just had cameras everywhere. No privacy, cameras, everything's recorded universe, which again, old, idea. The one moment that did feel novel was when they were having sex and they were both playing better previous versions of having sex in their mind while they were doing it. I thought that was a good stark moment. But again, I did not like it. I just thought this was the weakest of the three.
I'm looking forward to you watching season 2. How are you going to approach it?
I mean, I'm gonna go in cold and blind, just like I did with season 1, and probably watch it with Bonnie.
There is an overriding theme of technology affecting things. I hope that won't spoil it for you.
Just as long as it doesn't also concern the inevitability of certain human nature characteristics
prevailing despite technology. Damn it might do that too. I think season 1. I'm not going to say anything. I'll wait till next week to tell you my comparison of season 1 versus season 2. But it is definitely what you said, where saying 1 is your least favorite is almost hard to do because they're all so good.
Well, I
feel that way about season 2 as well.
It's just like some of the Sherlock episodes. There were some that I thought were weaker than others, but all, it's like I'm glad I live in a universe where Black Mirror and Sherlock exist.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up with The Shield season 4, episode 1. This is obviously the season premiere of season 4. It's 2005 now, starting to look like modern television.
Yeah.
And there's lots of interesting things. First off, I just want to say, Brian, this may be the most I have enjoyed an episode of The Shield.
Now, if I'm remembering correctly, I was really excited about this season because this is it Glenn Close joins the cast?
Yes. So they introduce Glenn Close. She's the captain who's going to replace Aceveda in like 2 weeks, is what they say at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, that's I remember being super excited, like, wow, this is unprecedented in television, or not unprecedented, but to have not a guest star, but like an Academy Award winning actress come and join the cast and to come in, I think it's fairly clear from the very first episode that she is out to sniff out. Like, she gets warned about Mackie, right?
Well, yes. I mean, she's not even just warned about him. She actually knows about him, right? What comes out is that Mackie finds out about a letter that Aceveda wrote where he basically doesn't support Vic for a position running a gang squad. And it comes out that the captain that Glenn Close is playing knew that. She knew about that. She knows about Vic Mackey. She's heard about him. He's famous, right? Everybody knows about Vic Mackey. But she doesn't know him personally, so she wants to get to know him. And to me, that's the most fascinating part of this episode, is that you have somebody who is taking over the cop, the chief and the rogue investigator, right? The classic TV cop show trope is he's a guy who doesn't play by the rules but gets results. And the chief is always uncomfortable with him, but he has to admit he gets the job done at the end. And honestly, that's Aceveda and Mackie. Now, it's done on a much higher level and a much more sophisticated way. But at base, that's what's going on, is Aceveda is uncomfortable with Mackie, but Mackie gets the job done.
Right.
What Glenn Close does is comes in and says, look, we're not going to play those roles. I know exactly who you are. I'm not going to combat you, but if you lie to me, I'm not going to work with you either. And she really turns the tables on Mackie, where he's like, I guess I have to tell her the truth, because she knows when he's BSing, and she just won't play the game. And I'm like, that is a much more interesting dynamic. And it's not a dynamic you could have come out in season 1 with, I don't think. You needed to build Vic Mackey's character up first to know really his nuances for you to believe that he would be a good enough guy to want to tell Glenn Close the truth. And you're getting all of this in episode 1, which is essentially rebooting the series, right? You see no Shane. You see a brief appearance from Lem. He's like doing parent services stuff, working with kids. The strike team is in tatters. We don't know where Shane is until the very end of the episode. Although I saw his name in the credits, so I was like, well, I guess we're gonna see Shane, because Walton Goggins got his name in the credits. But I was like, when are we gonna get to him?
Right.
And of course, that sets up another nice twist, which is instead of the strike team working under Vic Mackey to protect the money train and bring in the bad guys, all of a sudden Shane's now gone rogue. He's off on his own, and he and Vic just had an incident, and I don't even know what it means, but it definitely means that Vic and Shane are no longer friends, and Vic's going to be tested on whether he can actually oppose Shane or not.
Well, and it's double tough because you know their backstory, and so you know what Vic has on Shane, and Shane you know what Shane has on Vic, and it's a two-way street. Of the strike team, you know, they were the only two really in on the assassination on that very first episode, and so this Cold War, you know, the introduction, because you know Shane's under the influence of his fiancée now, and you know that's awkward. You know, Vic starts to look increasingly boxed in, but this is what's amazing about the character Vic Mackey. Instantly turns around and just, you know, says a lie off the cuff. I'm like, how do you keep track of all of this stuff? This is unreal.
Yeah. And honestly, I this isn't my favorite episode, but this is the episode I enjoyed the most, if that makes any sense, which is like the story of this episode is fairly much a lot of setup, and it's not necessarily great plots. You have some interesting things, you know, happening with what's her name, with the I can remember the beat cops.
Yeah. Julian's ex-partner,
Julian and her.
Yeah.
You see them like trying to help in a neighborhood and not being able to help, as sort of emblematic of like, this is the problem in the system, is they can't even get a detective to show up. You see Wims and Wagenbach. I think this is even more interesting, being blackballed by the DA's office and having to work under the guy who ends up being the tech guy in Homeland later on. As he's the front, he puts the cases up. So you're like, okay, we got their plot, which is regaining respectability. But you also have Wims as the passed over captain, which could easily be I'm going to go lock horns with the Glenn Close when she takes over. But Glenn Close plays her much differently than that. It's like, at first it seems to Wims like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a battle. But then it becomes, I can help you improve, but you've got to improve. Looks like you need to leave this behind you. And it's like, okay, this is a different approach than just busting her balls. This is going to be a very different Farmington. This is going to be a very different barn in this season. But I like it. And they did a really good job of saying, hey, guess what? You're going to get a new captain, but here's why you're going to like it. I'm still very interested in what Acevedo's role is going to be. He's obviously in the season because they didn't really need to have him if they just wanted to introduce a new captain, but they did have him, and they set up that he's still having problems with his wife, but his wife's, holding his feet to the fire. Like, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to make it that easy. You need to get help. So we're obviously going to see more of that storyline, which I'm interested in as well.
So I wonder if some of the, and we've talked about how in general season 4 gets lower scores on IMDb. I wonder if you're getting a better experience because you're plowing straight through, and you're aware that there's 7 seasons in this whole experience, that it seems like around season 4 is a good place to get some breathing room, Yeah. Whereas with a show that is constantly increasing its intensity, I could see that at the time, as it's actually going through, people are like, whatever happened I wanted to know more of the stuff I enjoyed from before. Whereas I really did enjoy the kind of, it's almost like this tantric nature of, it gets more intense and then pulls back and all this stuff.
You're midway through the book.
Yeah.
When it's only 7 seasons. It's different when you're just going from season to season. But I've definitely experienced that thing where a show you love changes and you're like, yeah, but I wanted more of the thing I loved. And the creators of the show are like, yeah, but the thing you love is fed by this, so we need to keep refreshing that.
Right.
To be able to, otherwise the thing you love would just turn into a parody of itself.
I'm really glad to hear that. If you dig the breathing room that you've got right now, you'll get more of this. I mean, there'll be interesting stuff, and Glenn Close is just electric in every scene. She really steps up the overall acting game for the entire show.
Oh, well, it's just obvious in this first episode where you can tell that she already has a really good idea of how to handle Vic, which is not to come in and bust his balls, which would be the temptation of a captain taking over in that situation, but to observe and then match her experience and help him where it actually helps, so that he gets like, hey, you want to help? You got to keep playing by my rules.
That's true. Yeah. Man, dude, exciting.
Good stuff. Thank you all for watching. Cordkillers.com for more. We'll spoil you next time.
You're spoiled.
With ice cream.
With joy.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.